Hi, Michael. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I am good. First off, happy April Fool's Day. Do you celebrate
Yes.
this holiday?
I typically do. Yeah. I don't have time today. I'm slammed today. So it's interesting to open a movie on April Fools. It's like
Right. But it's
people
not a
almost don't
joke.
believe you. Yeah.
Right.
They
Right.
almost don't believe you.
Well, let's talk about family, which is what this movie is all about. I mean, it's kind of a struggle between morality and that loyalty to family. And I actually heard that you were the one who wanted to join on to this project. And I'm curious what stuck out about it to you.
Yeah. For me, it was very important to be a part of this project because I always wondered what it was like to be in a big family. Like for me growing up, we had, it was four of us, my parents and my sister and I. And I've always wondered what it was like to grow up with a whole lot of siblings.
Yeah.
And, like, did you fight a lot? Did you form like your own basketball team? Like when you went on vacations, was like two people went this way and one person went that way? Like, how does all of that stuff work? And so I was fascinated with that. And then add in the subject matter and the idea of how this perfectly tight-knit family is able to galvanize them, their love and emotions and help one sibling out. And then turn around and have to do it again with another one,
Yeah.
right? And then that next action is what creates all the cracks in the foundation of the family. And
Right.
you realize that family is probably the most intimate form of like a gang.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're
No.
like
Yeah.
intimate form of a gang, and there's loyalty that really matters. And so I found myself really fascinated with that subject matter, and I just love the storytelling. This is like a simple story
Yeah.
about human beings. There's no dragons, no capes, no superpowers, just human emotion. And I grew up with these kind of movies, and I miss seeing them now. So it was nice to be able to make one.
Yeah. And speaking of that familial love that kind of goes through this entire movie, it
Mhm.
was nice to see it because you're right. It doesn't really show up anymore. We see all the drama and the dragons and whatever. But this was just, vocalizing love, hugging each other. And it was really nice to see, especially between men, which you never see anymore.
I'm
So
so
I'm
glad you picked up on that.
it's
Yeah.
it was really beautiful. So I'm curious, raising kids of your own, is that something that you want to implement into their lives?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's interesting because I remember watching it, because I was there on days I wasn't shooting.
Yeah.
And I remember it didn't dawn on me then, but when I saw the first cut, that's when I said, "Oh wow, this is powerful to
Mm.
see all these men showing affection for each other." Because the truth is, men have been kind of trained to not be that way with
Right.
each other. And I think we're starting to kind of evolve beyond that. And you see on Instagram men kissing their kids, and it's like we can do this. We can love on our kids. We can dote on our kids. We can love on our spouses. We can dote on our spouse. Like we don't have to. I don't think masculinity is tied up in being emotionally bereft or
Mhm.
affectionately bereft of or bereft of affection rather.
Yeah.
And so for me, it's important that we see that, and I hope that people get exactly what you got because there's a lot of it in this movie.
Yeah.
And I asked Charles, because this is loosely based on his own life. Is
Right.
that how it was between you and your brothers? He's like, absolutely. He was
Oh,
like, we could not leave. You couldn't like leave the house without showing love.
yeah.
Like that's just, but that also doesn't prevent, bad things from happening.
Yep, it
So,
does not. It does not. But also, okay, so this was based on Charles. Okay, you have two children right now. Would you have three, four, five kids? Do you want that big family of your own?
you know what? I think if I had started in my 20s,
Okay.
I would probably have four kids.
Yeah.
I
I
can
think it's
see myself
like
having four kids.
the amount of hands you have should at least be the amount of kids so you can
Yeah,
grab onto, you know what I mean?
yeah. I am done having children, to my knowledge, and so right now it's like there's two of us and two of them, and if
Perfect.
we split, we can cover them in like a man-to-man defense here. And if we
Right.
have a third, then one of us has got to go zone with two. And
Oh,
I'm like, oh, no thanks.
that's that sounds like a lot to me too.
Yeah, I'm too old for that now. But if you start in your 20s, I say, yeah, go ahead and have 4 kids for sure.
Yeah. Well, your character is amazing. He's a detective on screen, but you're also an EP. So you're also behind the scenes in this one. So, what was the harder hat to wear this time around?
Hmm, good question. I feel like for me, this detective was
Mm.
the harder hat. And I say that because I've played detectives, I've played law enforcement, I've played CIA, FBI, LAPD. I've played my fair share of
Yeah.
law enforcement. But for me, this guy was different. He had a fatigue to him. He had an emotional arc in terms of, you know, him wanting to leave this job and the trauma that it has imposed upon him. Sometimes we don't look at um, the people who are dealing, whose job it is to handle trauma. We don't look at their well-being, their mental health. We don't look at that all the time. And a lot of times, I think, especially in film and TV, cops are pretty black and white. Like they're either a really good cop and very righteous, or they're like a crooked cop and they're actually, the antagonist versus the protagonist. So you just have to look at it and say, well, for me, it was like, oh, how can I flip this whole play the detective thing on its head and just bring some sort of humanity to a group of people who, quite frankly, I love detectives in that way. I really do. I mean, they really do help. I mean, they don't always solve the crime, but they for damn sure try.
Yeah.
And, we don't ever give them credit for what they have seen. I mean,
Yeah.
think about seeing a dead body
Hmm.
once a week,
Hmm.
just once a week. What does that do to you long term? And that's the thing that, that's an approach I kind of had with this character was it's just the totality of it, and again, this was inspired by first responders during COVID. So it just kind of made sense. It all kind of added up.
Yeah. And another special thing about your character is he was a part of two communities. He was a part of the Black community and the Blue community, which
Hmm.
we never really talk about the struggle that someone in both probably has to toggle with. And your
Hmm.
character dove into that. And I'm curious why that was important to show.
Because we don't talk about it.
Mm.
These are the kind, what you're saying. I'm so glad you picked up on that, because these are the conversations Charles and I were having. I was like, we never talk about that. Like we always see cops be, extremely loyal to cops, or, or they're like the internal affairs guys, and they're like,
Right.
they're considered the rats of the department and all this other thing. So it's like, there's always this kind of, I think there's a more nuanced version of what we're seeing in law enforcement. And for me as an actor, that's what I'm going to try and uncover every time. I feel like everybody's done the other stuff. We've done the blunt version of a detective. It's like, let me see what happens when, this person's humanity um, is more important to him.
Yeah. And I wanted to touch on this real quick. Yes, you have played many law enforcement characters. You played an FBI agent recently in a series that I'm obsessed with. And it's the woman in the house across the street from the girl in the window. Yes, I wrote it down because I couldn't remember it. And I'm
Right.
curious, okay, what was harder, playing like in a drama thriller, a real one, or a satirical version of one? What was harder?
Satirical. The
Really?
satirical version was harder. Yes, it was so much harder. I'm so glad you said that. And here's why. As an actor, I think drama is kind of my wheelhouse, right? I
Yeah.
got into this business to do dramas. I didn't know I would end up doing some comedies. I didn't know I'd end up doing some thrillers. I didn't know. I was really trying to do dramas like this, like The Devil You Know. I seek drama all the time. It's darkness in me. I don't know why.
It's the actor in you.
It's the actor in me. It's very, yeah, it's annoying to my loved ones though. That being the case, for me, the satirical version was so much harder because it's not going to make sense.
Yeah.
Drama makes sense. Taking your child to a federal prison and into the room with a
Cannibalist.
cannibal, you know what I mean? Like that was just so outrageous
Yeah.
that it was like, how do you do this and not laugh at yourself?
Right.
And so that was the hardest part. And then there's a version of when you're doing satire, there's kind of a version of bad acting happening because you're supposed to play everything just a little bit over the top.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and Kristen is just a gem to work with. And she was very helpful in helping me find the tone of the character. So I give Kristen and then our director, Michael Ealy, a lot of help, a lot of praise for helping me get there. Cause it was so much fun once we did get it going.
Well, you were incredible in both, but finally The Devil You Know is hitting theaters today, actually, April 1st.
Today.
So it's really quick. What's that movie theater snack you've got to have whenever you go?
Peanut M&Ms. Yeah.
That's a classic. Just a classic. I hope everyone grabs themselves some peanut M&Ms and they watch The Devil You Know in theaters today. Thank you so much for talking to me, Michael.
Thank you, Bailey. I appreciate it.
I don't want to lose you to this. I don't want to lose my family.
The more missteps you make, the more messy it gets.